Egypt, land of the pharaohs. While everyone knows about pyramids and pharaohs, it is a lesser known fact that figures other than pharaohs and their queens were given the mummification treatment, however on a far less elaborate scale than members of the royal family. Given the small-scale nature of these burial chambers, our knowledge of the lower levels of ancient Egyptian society was rather rudimentary, until now. With the recent discovery and excavation of the tomb of Ahmenheltab, our knowledge of an entire Egyptian society has grown tremendously. The tomb was discovered, quite by accident, by two drunken college students who were receiving summer credit for helping an archaeologist excavate a neighbouring area. According to the students, who have asked to remain nameless, they had wandered off from the main dig by accident during the middle of the night and stumbled across a narrow opening in the sand. This opening proved to be the entryway to the tomb of Ahmenheltab. Now, after several months of careful analysis, we are able to tell the story of Ahmenheltab, head data collector for the Lower Nile region of Egypt. We're all familiar from yearly showings of the Ten Commandments with the importance the Egyptian rulers placed upon the interpretation of dreams. They often looked to dreams to help them make important decisions, and the people who could correctly interpret dreams were held in high esteem. Some of them were held in such high esteem that they were allowed to be buried alive with the pharaohs they served. What we now know is that, at least in the late Egyptian period, the royal family took a much more active approach to collecting dream information throughout the kingdom. Ahmenheltab was not an interpreter of dreams. He was, in fact, the collector of dream data. It was the job of Ahmenheltab and his crack staff to gather and organise the dream information in a way that would allow the royal family to more effectively rule Egypt. This advance in data collecting significantly changed the way in which the Egyptian rulers worked with dream information. So, if one person dreamed of 7 starving cows, that might not mean anything, just a fluke. But if, on a given night, 400 people dreamed of 7 starving cows, that was an important piece of information. As far as we know, the data collection system designed by Ahmenheltab was the first use of the standard sample in human history. From hieroglyphs on the walls of his tomb, we even know the breakdowns of that standard Egyptian sample. It was 10% carriers of dung, 15% people who worked in fields with scythes, 5% fancy pottery makers, 5% scarab beetle shell painters, 20% stone quarriers, 10% butchers of cattle, 20% pharaohs' wives, 10% royal eunuchs, and 5% weird street prophets. Each morning, the staff of Ahmenheltab would survey the people on the sample, record their dreams, and tally their responses deep in their underground warrens. Luckily for historians, the tomb of Ahmenheltab was built on top of the data collection warrens, and so we know what their workspace looked like. The cube-like arrangement of the warren system is fascinating. It's the only use of the space-saving cube we've seen in Egyptian burial chambers. Other burial chambers tend to favour huge open spaces, vast ceilings, large statues, all designed to create a sense of awe and fear on the part of the viewer. Our best guess is that the cube arrangement was designed to create a sense of despair and defeat. There's a slightly hopeless quality to the tomb structure. Everywhere you look, it's the same. You go around in circles and end up right where you began. The effect of this labyrinthine structure on the people who worked within it must have been quite oppressive. One bit of evidence of how they must have felt is provided by a small engraving scratched rudely into one of the cube walls. It reads, when translated, TIIA. Our best guess that this should be taken to mean, thank Isis, it's Ahmen's Day. Ahmen's Day being the end of the Egyptian week.
Inside the tomb of Ahmenheltab, we believe we have found paintings that describe a typical workday inside the cubes. Here, you'll notice what we believe is a lowly tabulation worker pounding out in stone the tables. Then, from our best judgment, it appears that he is climbing up to take these tables to the royal client service. And then here we have a scene that depicts the tabulation worker delivering his tables to the client service department. And then, from our best guess, in this scene, client service is saying, could I also get that in papyrus?
Do we know how effective the work of Ahmenheltab and the royal data collectors was? Not exactly, but history does leave us with some subtle hints. Once the period of Ahmenheltab was firmly established, it was noted that Ahmenheltab, head data collector for the Lower Nile region, died and was entombed a mere 6 weeks before the total collapse of the dynasty which he served. While we cannot, from this distance, determine a strict cause and effect relationship, we can say with some confidence that the work of Ahmenheltab does not seem to have enabled the ruling dynasty to foresee their own imminent demise. Such is, as it always has been, the cruel, cruel irony of history.